Hello. The Divine Code reading for September 18th, pages 205 and 206. We are in Chapter 7, the obligation to eliminate idol worship and the prohibition against benefiting from it. Halakha number 9. The above applies only if one found such vessels in a respectable place. So what's being discussed here is the finding vessels or finding clothing that has idolatrous images on it. And one is not certain whether or not it was a vessel or clothing used for idol worship, or if it was used for common purposes, or if it was used for idol worship, was it nullified? So whether or not it's acceptable for benefit. If one finds them cast away, and it appears that they are ownerless or nullified, and surely if they are broken, since it is not it is not a usual practice for a broken vessel for idol worship. It is not a usual practice to use a broken vessel for idol worship. They are permitted. So if the vessel is not found in an honorable manner, or if it appears that the previous owner had discarded it, because if it's used for idol worship, it would be treated in an honorable manner. Therefore, it's being treated in a dishonorable manner, it can be assumed that it's not being used for idol worship. Even plain topic number 10. Even plain crosses that are bowed down to are forbidden. So they're talking about crucifixes, maybe Protestant crosses. Usually it's maybe the Protestant crosses could also be bowed down to, but usually in the ones that have the figure on it, those are bowed down to, would be considered inappropriate for benefit. But plain crosses worn as regular jewelry. So people just wear it as jewelry. They just wear it as a decoration. They don't really. It's not that particular cross would not be bowed down to. It's only a cross in a more of a ceremonial manner that might be found in a temple. That's bowed down to. That would be forbidden for benefit. Plain crosses that are worn as jewelry that are only intended as a symbol and not for worship are permitted for benefit. Rhema, Eurydia, chapter 141. Unless they are used as aids in worship. Also, a three-dimensional or accurate full frontal human form of any size is not permitted for decoration, which includes jewelry. That was in the earlier part where we talked about statues and figurines. So it's, in either case, it might be not allowed. In a lot of this part of the chapter here, they're talking specifically about if a figurine or something is used in the worship service, it might also be forbidden for benefit for the other reason. It doesn't mean it's permitted for benefit. It might be forbidden for benefit for another reason, such as it being an image of an idol, or an image of a full frontal, one of the images talked of earlier that in and of itself is not allowed. So there's different reasons why it might not be permitted. Right now we're looking at one of the reasons, and if it doesn't fit that one reason, doesn't necessarily mean it's permitted, because it might be disqualified for benefit due to a different reason. Vessels and artworks that have images of crosses are forbidden for benefit if they are generally used for idol worship. even if they are not respectable vessels. If they are generally used only for decoration in non-idolatrous contexts, they are permitted, even if they include a two-dimensional human image. So the two-dimensional image within certain contexts, within it as a decorative area, might be permitted if it's not used as an aid to worship. Let's say the person, you're in a bar, and for whatever reason, the bar has images on the wall, or it has reliefs. It might have crosses somehow worked into its beer mugs. That would not make it unpermitted in the way we're talking about here. See Shach Yordea 141:13. Topic number 11. The general rule is that for any image, statue, or vessel for which there is a doubt whether it was used for actual idol worship, or as part of a idol worship ritual, or for decoration of idol worship. So you got three different stages here that exist within the idol worship. You have the actual object that's being worshipped, something that's used as an aid, a bowl that's used for libation, for example, would be an aid for the idol worship. And decoration, just things that are put up to beautify it. So the general rule with all three of these: one should assume that it was used according to the custom of the local area. So if in the local area, you have to find out, in the local area, is this likely to be used in the idol worship, in some manner in the idol worship? In some areas they might use it, in some areas they wouldn't. So it depends on the local custom. If one is still in doubt, the ruling is lenient and it is permitted. So in this area, when there's doubt, the benefit of the doubt goes towards allowing it to be used for benefit, rather than being extra strict. That's for Noahide. The Noahide law, the ruling is towards the leniency. The leniency and permission for a doubtful item, doubtful as to whether it is permitted or forbidden, is, as Rambam writes, quoted in footnote 207, because doubtful situations are decided leniency from the standpoint of basic Torah law. So from a strict Torah law, and that's what the Noahides usually will look at, what is a strict Torah law? It rules in a lenient manner. Rabbinic authorities ruled strictly on cases of doubt only for Jews. So the rabbis made it more strict, made this ruling more strict for the case of Jews. Rabbinic rulings don't necessarily apply to Gentiles, and therefore our ruling is according to the strict Torah law, which is more lenient. That doesn't mean that we can't allow ourselves to sort of follow the rabbinic stringencies. I mean, the rabbinic stringencies are there for a reason. It's there for the purpose of protecting the Jewish people. And if it's good for protecting the Jewish people, we might consider following it because it's a good thing. But we have to understand, this is very important, we have to understand that what the difference is between what is a Torah a clear law for the non-Jew, and what might be an extra caution that we might want to follow a more cautious manner. And it's important we know the distinction between the two of these, so we don't mistakenly think the rabbinic ruling is the actual halakha and try to promote that not only to ourselves under that guise, or to promote it to other people, telling them that that's the Torah law. We have to make sure that when we're promoting it, we say this is the Torah law, and there's rabbinic. In this case, for the Jew, it would be required. For the non-Jew, it might be recommended. Therefore, it is obvious that for Gentiles, doubtful situations are decided leniently, as explained in footnote 207 above. Khatem Sofer, Volume 6, Chapter 25, rules likewise. Megdadim states in its introduction to Shulchan Aruch Yorachim, Seder Hagot HaShaol, paragraph 24. Paragraph 42. If there is a doubt whether something is forbidden for a Gentile, it is permitted, even up to one-to-one mixture of forbidden and permitted items. When the prohibited item is there, but is not distinguishable, in the case of an entire mixture, would be prohibited for a Jew, for whom the Torah rules strictly, if it is definitely known that a prohibition is involved. In a case of one forbidden item mixed with one permitted item, one Gentile can even take one item, and another Gentile can take the other item. So each one is benefiting from an item that might be prohibited with a doubt up to 50%. See Sadi, Chemed, P.S. Hasada, Gimel, 6.3, who brings these opinions. So according to this, if there's a mixture of permitted and not permitted items, you can't tell the difference between which one is permitted and which one's not permitted. They look, it's not obvious. When we look at the bag, there's different items in it. It's not obvious which items are permitted, which items are not permitted. The Jew would not be allowed to take any of it, because there's a possibility, a probability that he may take the wrong item and he'll wind up with something forbidden. So the Jew can't touch it. The Gentile is allowed to take from the bag and it appears from the way it's being said here, take from the bag. If it's known it's 50% permitted, 50% not permitted, take 50% of the bag. And even he's allowed to take 50% of the bag. The other non-Jew can take the other 50% of the bag. And either one has the 50% possibility of having the wrong item. Now, one of the two has the wrong item. One of the two has the not allowed item. But it's permitted because there's the 50-50 chance. And that's the strict halakha. That's just the way halakha works. Again, a pious among the nations may want to be more cautious, but that's an optional stringency. It's not required. So the strict halakha is that it can be done this way. One cannot question this based on Rambam's Laws of Kings 10:8, which says that since Ishmaelites and the descendants of Keturah, Abraham's second wife in Genesis chapter 25, became intermingled, that they are all obligated in circumcision, which implies that a doubt is stringent for them. In that case, the descendants of Torah are the majority, greater than 50%. So it's a question of whether or not for non-Jews, in the case of the children of Abraham, the non-Jewish children of Abraham, the children of Keturah were required, because they were born after the commandment for circumcision. The children of Keturah are required to circumcise, and the children of Ishmael are not required because he was born prior to the giving of that commandment. Even though Ishmael was born, but the way the wording is, I mean, Ishmael was circumcised, but the way the wording is, his descendants are not required to be circumcised, but the descendants of Keturah's children are required to be circumcised, just the way that the wording is for that commandment. When they intermingled, the cousins married cousins. When they intermingled, the question will be whether or not they're required, the descendants are required, because the majority of the community that intermingled was the children of Keturah. Then it went with the majority, and therefore the community was required to be circumcised. If their descendants and so forth, they were required to be circumcised. And so that would be a case that if the bag contains a majority of idolatrous items, then it would be not permitted. The entire mixture would not be permitted. That would be the case of the majority. We're going up to 50% in what's being talked about here, according to what's in a bag. So the questions of Keturah and Ishmael's descendants would not apply here. Topic number 12. If idols or their associated accoutrements are mixed with a majority of permitted items, the mixture is permitted. What does this mean? For example, if this applies if an object that was worshipped as an idol got mixed up with some decorative figures. So they can't tell the difference between the decorative idol, the idol that was actually used in worship, and decorative replicas of the idol, and they get all mixed together and they can't tell the difference. And it is not known which of is the forbidden object, or if a goblet is used for idol worship got mixed up with some other goblets. So it cannot be recognized. So there's a goblet that is used in the idol worship. And then the bar down the street has a bunch of goblets that are replicas of it, that they use for a mundane purpose at the bar. They just serve beer in it. If you can't tell the difference between the one used in the idolatrous ritual and the one used at the bar, if the permitted items in this nature became mixed together with a majority of permitted items, if the prohibited items of this nature became mixed together with a majority of permitted items, the whole mixture is permitted. So there's 2 cups from the bar, and there's 1 cup from the temple. They get mixed together. The 2 cups would create the entire mixture would then be permitted. This appears likely since based directly from Torah. Every type of prohibited item or substance is nullified when it falls into a majority of indistinguishable items that are permitted. So the mixture causes, because the mixture has been mixed together with the majority of the items that are permitted, that causes the prohibited item to become nullified. The prohibition becomes nullified because of the mixture. It's no longer distinguishable as a object of used for idolatry. In those cases for which Torah law states that a prohibited item or substance does not become nullified as a simple minority in a mixture, is referred to a prohibition that the sages placed upon the Jews, so they may not benefit from it. See Tractate of Avodah Zarah 73b, Rambam, Laws of Forbidden Foods, 15.4 and 16.9, and Shulchan Aruch Yoreh De'ah 110.1. So again, there's the Torah law, the strict Torah law, which in this case is lenient, but it's the basic Torah law, and that's what the non-Jew follows. That's the baseline Torah law. The rabbis gave extra stringencies, which were for the sake of benefiting the Jewish people for extra safety. And the pious among the nations can take on some of these stringencies, understanding that it's done as a voluntary thing, as an individual. It cannot be placed on the nations as a requirement. Rabbinic stringencies in this case, they might be seen as recommended for people to follow, but when people are permitted to follow for the sake of being more pious, but it's not a requirement that's given to the nations. And we cannot allow it to become a requirement. It's not permitted to become a requirement for the nations to take on these extra stringencies, although it's permitted for individuals to do so. Thank you.